So today's Thursday. I thought Friday will be the last day of the week for me, but turns out they gave me a schedule, so now I know I'm not gonna screw up again. I'm working Saturday. And I said, wait, I worked last Saturday. And they said, well, didn't you ask us for more hours? I said, yeah, okay, there you go then. But then after this Saturday, it's gonna be alternating. Basically, 1 week I work Monday through Friday, and then another week I work Monday through Saturday. So 5 days, 6 days. Originally they said when you work Saturday, you don't have to work Monday, but we're getting very busy. Like today, I probably did, I don't know, 200 kilometers. I was all over Calgary. I lost count how many times I was on 201 on the ring road. And I wanted to mention two things, two curious occurrences that happened today. So yeah, sorry I haven't recorded a video in a long time because I'm still waiting for Freightliner. And last time I forgot to make a video, so I already showed you guys how I'm driving in the pickup truck. It's no big deal. But mostly it's all scaffolding. Today I did a bunch of scaffolding. I did a heater with propane tanks, more about that in a second. And then more scaffolding. And I think I did a vacuum, like industrial vacuum. No, that was yesterday. But basically, as I mentioned before, each day is different, which makes it interesting. Scaffolding gets easier. So now I have a problem with propane tanks. I really don't like those. Again, more about that in a second. But an interesting thing happened. So when you're on Deerfoot Trail, Highway 2, the speed limit is 110 kilometers an hour in the north and south of Calgary. But in the middle, it's 100 kilometers, right? As soon as you jump on 201, the ring road, the speed limit all over is 100 kilometers an hour. So everybody says don't do 120, you'll get a ticket. And so I'm driving around, I have lots of kilometers to cover, so I'm doing 110. And I was on the ring road in the left lane, and 110, and I see in the mirror people are behind me, hanging on my bumper, so they want me to move, so they want to go faster. Okay, so I accelerate a little bit to get into the right lane, and I see there's a pickup truck behind me, like a Ram 1500, right on my bumper. Like the guy is super impatient, but I don't want to speed up so too much, because you never know. There's always cops watching, right? And so I went into the middle lane, and then I went into the curb lane, so that, because I think my exit was getting close, and so I got into the curb lane. So I think I was doing maybe 112 clicks an hour, just slightly more than what I usually do, like 110, because everybody says they're not gonna bother you if you're like 10% over, like 110, 115 is already risky, but 110, 112. But that guy, as soon as I went into the curb lane, that gray Ram 1500 just hit gas and zoomed by me. If I was doing 110, 112, and he went like, so he was doing like 135, 140, So when I was in the curb lane, he passed me in the middle lane. As soon as he did that, right away, I look in the mirror, some huge SUV with white markings, and over here, police, they, it's a black overall color, but the doors are white, so like very contrasty, so you can see them from far away. And so right away I see in the mirror there's a cop behind me in the curb lane, and at first I see he kind of like slowed a little bit, and he's looking at me thinking, okay, this guy is doing 110, and then immediately he speeds up after the Dodge Ram. Man, But that ramp was like crazy, I'm telling you, like 140 for sure, so 90 miles an hour. And this guy burned right after him, and as soon as I saw his lights flashing, of course I changed lanes, went into the middle lane to give him room, but he stopped him. That was my ramp. That was my exit ramp I was supposed to take. And so I just slowly went around the cop, you know, and so he stopped him on the ramp, on the exit ramp. And that's what happens, you know. That's why it's always a good idea to drive with the understanding that the big brother is watching. So you don't want to do 130, you know, you don't want to be, you know, 30, 40 clicks above the speed limit, because you cannot see them, right? They're sitting somewhere on the ramp, you know. You can be sitting on the entrance ramp right after the bridge or like overpass. You cannot see them, you know, because here, as soon as that guy hit gas, right away there's a cop, you know. And I didn't see them all day today. So that was like interesting occurrence. So again, I have to be careful. But you know, I'm trying to stay with the traffic. Maybe this morning I was going very fast, so I just did 110 and that's it. I was passing everybody. Of course, that's a bit risky. You know, you don't want to be in the left lane, and I don't want to be in the left lane, and I don't want to be the fastest car. Okay, so ideally I want to be in the middle lane, you know, not to draw attention to myself, right? But you know, it's always a compromise. Like, you know, you can do, if you do the speed limit, there'll be always somebody will always be on your bumper, you know, pushing you basically. Nobody wants to drive the speed limit. So that was one interesting thing. And just to recollect, in my entire life I only had one speeding ticket, because I always assume that cops are watching, and cops are human. They cannot stop, they don't have the manpower to stop people that do like, you know, 1 mile or two kilometers over the speed limit. So they're waiting for somebody like that guy in the pickup truck, somebody who does 30, 40 clicks above the speed limit, like 25 miles over, you know, because otherwise they don't want to be bothered, right? And so that's my strategy, and I always drive like that. Always assume that cops are watching, but they're not gonna stop you if you're within, you know, like 9 miles or, I don't know, 10, 15 kilometers over, usually, right? Unless the guy is really in a bad mood and he didn't get laid last night, you know, but stuff happens. But so this was a good, you know, lesson for me, just to be careful, like especially here in Alberta. Cops are very focused on speeders. So that was one occurrence. The second one was, I got a heater, probably weighs about 50 pounds, has 2 handles. It's like 80,000 BPU heater, and it works on propane. And I look at my paperwork, it says 4 propane tanks. And of course, they're not empty, they're loaded, right, with propane. And they're so heavy, I think, because, you know, I can lift 140 pounds, like 2 of my kettlebells, 70 and 70, 140. I can do deadlift, I can walk with them. This is heavier, you know, I cannot just lift it. And so this is probably close to, like, I don't know, 175, 180 pounds. But when they're empty, I'm able to lift them. I grab, you know, the bottom with my left hand, and I can kind of like cradle it in my right hand, and I can carry them, because when they're empty, I think they're probably close to like 50 pounds, you know. So 50 pounds is easy, because that's my other kettlebell that I use for jerks and snatches. By the way, did a few today, because today is Thursday, so I did not run today. Today I was doing some strength exercises, but didn't feel doing the entire thing, like my entire program, which takes like half an hour. So I just did probably 8. I did 8 single-handed jerks, one hand, you know, one arm, then another, and then I did about 6 or 8 snatches with each hand, and this was a 50-pound kettlebell. But still, you know, you start puffing pretty good, because it's a very good exercise. I really kind of like fell in love with these snatches and jerks, because that's kind of like Olympic movement, you know. But anyway, the second occurrence was, yeah, so I picked up these, I backed the truck and lowered the tailgate, and I backed the truck as close to the enclosure outside where all our tanks are, probably a couple of feet, and then of course you turn them, you position them like at 45-degree, maybe 50-degree angle or 60-degree angle to the ground, and you roll them, right? But there's like 3 or 4 feet of dirt between that enclosure and the truck, and they really don't want to roll in the dirt, because the bottom, it's the edge is very sharp, so it gets stuck in the dirt, you know. But I did it, loaded 4 of these bad boys on the tailgate. The tailgate can handle them because it's designed for 1,000 pounds. Lifted up, rolled them on the bed. Again, on the bed, it's all rubber. They don't want to roll very well, but you put them against the head rack right behind the cab, and wrap a strap around them. And then I loaded that heater back to a shop, loaded the heater again with the help of the tailgate. And there was a couple of small units that came with the heater. So anyway, call the guy. He says, yeah, I'll be there. I said, I need half an hour. He says, okay, I'll be there. If I'm not there, just call me or just wait for me. Okay, so I arrive at the place, and just as always, it's a private house where they're building something. Like the garage is still doesn't have any doors, you know, it's like half-finished house. And there's a fencing which fell down completely into the dirt, and the garage from the sidewalk is about, I would say, 8-9 meters, you know, like 20 feet, and it's all mud. Except I see some boards, I see some plywood on the side, but if you go straight, you're gonna drown, okay? And I stand there, I look around, there's no people, nobody's working, you know. So I drag these humongous propane tanks, you know, to my tailgate, lowered them, and rolled them, and put them on the sidewalk, right? Because we always tell them it's curbside delivery, right? I put 4 of these on the sidewalk, and they tell me to pick up 2 empty ones in the garage. So I used some of the boards I saw there to put over dirt. So I went in there. So like I said, I can lift the empty one, no problem. So I brought them one by one. Of course, they're still heavy, right? So like 20 feet from the garage to the car, loaded them. And by the time I was done strapping these empty ones, the 2 empty ones, I see some Lexus, white Lexus shows up, Indian dude behind the wheel, because I remember his name was, you know, Indian or Pakistani on the paperwork. And it's just him, and he's dressed like really nicely, you know, cute little, you know, pants. And so I see he's not dressed like to work, okay? So he dressed like a manager or, you know, owner. And right away I knew to ask him. I said, you okay with this? And I showed him the propane tanks sitting on the sidewalk, and he looks at me. He says, no, these have to go into the garage. I said, into the garage? You see all the mud here? Like, how do you expect me to? I said, this is curbside delivery, right? And he says, oh, nobody told me it was curbside. If that's why I paid for the delivery. And I look on the bill, actually, he paid $60. Cheap son of a gun. So he paid $60, and he thought that meant that somebody would drag these 4 loaded tanks into the garage over the mud, you know. And like I said before, you cannot roll them in the mud, they get stuck. So that means that either you drag them going backwards, or what I came up with was I used some of the plywood that was lying around, and I created kind of like a plywood road, and then I just drop them on the side and I roll them, you know, like horizontally. But even that, there's like a ground goes like this, and there was a bunch of snow on one plywood for some reason. Anyway, it was a big effort, you know. And he says, oh, I just had a heart attack. I cannot lift anything. And I said, can you call somebody? Like, you have any people? Oh, no. And I said, okay. I felt sorry for the guy. So I just rolled all these and then dragged a couple of them like backwards. And now my back feels sore. Like the muscles are kind of like tired, because imagine dragging 200-pound, I kid you not, 200-pound propane tank with both hands going backwards through the mud. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to mention. So that's the two interesting things that happened today. So one was that I got lucky with the cop chasing the ram doing 140 kilometers an hour. And second, the guy had a heart attack. Oh, by the way, when I came back to the office, I said, and I waited till the dispatcher was free. I said, hey, when you ship something heavy like this, I said, do you ever ask people if they had recently a heart attack? And he looks at me and he says, no, normally we don't ask that. I said, well, maybe you should start, because it's a curbside delivery. What am I supposed to do? Like, there's 4 propane tanks. He wants them a kilometer away. Well, 20 feet, but through the mud, And he says, next time, don't do it. He says, just call me, or just, if you don't feel, if you don't like it, if you don't feel it's okay, because, they don't want you to get injured either, right? Because then they lose an employee, and probably they'll have to pay some medical leave or something, right? But actually, I'm still within my 3 months, so I think if I had injured myself, nobody would pay me anything, because there's no benefits until 3 months. So yeah, so next time a situation like this, I just felt sorry for the guy, next time I'll just say sorry. No, like, either it's the sidewalk, or if you don't like it, I'm gonna load it back and return to LaGuardia, return to the shop, and we're gonna charge you twice. Because I think on the paperwork it says curbside delivery only. I think we only have one drywall customer that gives us so much business that with that guy, the management said we make an exception. Actually, they told me this today, because I was delivering for these guys today, and I said, screw this. So I just dropped everything in front of the garage, and the guy complained. And so the management says, for this particular company, because they're giving us so much business with the scaffolding, just try to put it inside the garage unless there's some kind of obstacles. And and I think actually I wanted to put it in the garage, but they had this tarp over the opening. Of course, there's still no doors, as with all these new houses, but the top was pinned at the top, and I didn't feel like ripping it off. And so the hole, like the opening, was just for one guy, and I'd have to bend to enter the garage. And imagine, I have these 5x5 frames. I have a bunch of 10-foot long decks. Basically, I wouldn't be able to do it unless I rip off the top to make the hole bigger. And so that's what I told the dispatch when they asked me about this, why I didn't put it inside the garage. I said, that's why, because the opening was too small, and I wasn't sure if I should, rip it open, remove one of the staples, because then they would complain about that, right? So you never know. You cannot please everyone. And yeah, so that heater. Oh yeah, and the heater, like the propane tanks, okay, I put them in the corner. And the 50-pound heater, I asked this guy with a heart attack, I said, so where do you want this? And he points me to the farthest corner of the garage, like 20 feet from the truck, and then probably another, I don't know, 15 feet to the corner. I said, oh boy, okay. So I grabbed it, 50 pounds, carried it to the side. And then I wrote on the paperwork, this is not curbside delivery. If you can, please charge the guy double for this. And so yeah, dispatch says don't do it next time, because you can get injured, We don't want to be responsible. Just call us and we'll come up with a solution. So those are my my news. And by the way, yeah, so I didn't drive the Freightliner the last few days because I discovered one of the tires on the drives was totally bald. Okay, like it was hard to see because it was the inside tire on the driver's side. But as soon as I saw it, I see that, you know, it's illegal. Like there's no tread at all. It just bald, you know, like my head after I shave it. And so I told the management, and they took him a couple of days, but they I saw they drove the truck away to some probably tire shop, and they came back, and the manager said they decided to change all 4 drive tires. So now that truck has nice tires on the back, so the truck is back. So hopefully tomorrow and Saturday maybe I'll be driving the Freightliner. Of course the pickup truck is more enjoyable because, you know, it's like a car, right? It's quieter, it's faster, but with the pickup truck I get a lot of scaffold loads, which are, you know, difficult. And even though I'm getting better and better at this, I learned a couple of tricks how to make it easier to load and unload, especially those 5x5 metal frames. But when you drive a Freightliner, normally it's some kind of a either a scissor lift or a forklift or a bobcat. You know, it's much easier. It's more in tune with heavy haul, what I did before. You know, that's why I prefer to drive the Freightliner. Oh, and also now the good news is that I talked to the manager about my hours. They gave me like a schedule for May and the end of April, and I had a couple of questions, so I went to see them, and they explained how it works. And then also they said they are, and actually I saw that ad. They posted an ad looking for a part-time driver. So now they're trying to find a part-time driver for the pickup truck for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So if they do that, if they hire a guy for a pickup truck, he'll do pretty much scaffolding because we're very busy at the end of the week. And so if they hire this guy, that means that I'll be doing less scaffolding and hopefully more equipment and machinery, you know. Oh, by the way, it's funny that you see, like, it's warm, it's hot, and so I asked this guy with a heart attack. I said, why did you order the heater? It's gonna be plus 15 Celsius, you know, which is what, like 60 F. And he said, oh, it's still cold inside the house. And he said, we're pouring concrete, and so we need the air to be warm for the concrete to settle, you know, and get firm. And that's why they got that heater. But man, those propane tanks, I'm gonna be dreaming about them today. So you gotta be really careful because you can, you know, screw up your back, and then what are you gonna do after that, right? Oh, and in other news on the freight broker front, and the previous customer reached out asking me for a quote. So if somebody has a truck, let me know. I have a potential load from Alberta to Ontario. It's a big machine. It's a crusher. Weighs 45 tons, so roughly 105,000 pounds. Just slightly oversized. I think it's like 9.5 feet wide, about 12 feet tall, and it's on tracks, so it just needs a regular well. But yeah, it goes from around Calgary to northern Ontario. I think it's about 1,000 miles. So 1,000 miles. So basically looking for quotes, trying to find a truck. All right, those are the news. Thanks for watching. Ciao.